Hello, everyone. It's been a minute since I've been back on my own podcast. And yeah, today we're chatting with Tom, and I said to everyone on my Instagram that we were going to do this really juicy podcast. And I feel like it would be weird to talk to anyone else other than Tom about my experience over the weekend. So welcome, Tom, to our conversation, which you'll be leading the way, I guess, or just chatting with me about it.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Pleasure. It's always great to have a chat on the podcast. So yeah, basically over the weekend, this is something that I've been wanting to do. I'm making it sound like a business adventure or a journey. It is a journey.
It is a journey.
Yeah, it's been something I've wanted to do for a long time. I've been feeling called to do it for ages. I have done it before, but I've never had a journey or any effect from it. So basically on Sunday, myself and a girlfriend set out on a plant medicine journey at my house. We did psilocybin, so mushrooms, and it was life-changing.
I know, you've been wanting to do it for so long.
So long. And I've just been getting pulled to do it. And obviously with the talk of them hopefully becoming legalized soon, what a better time to test it for everyone. And, you know, I don't want to say all this bullshit at the start, like this is not an advertisement, you know, but you guys know I'm just sharing my experience. This is not something I want you to go and try. Breathwork, go and try it. It's still a psychedelic experience by all means. Cacao, try it. But this, do what you need to do. Definitely. Yeah, I can't remember the actual meaning of the word psychedelic. I think it comes from Greek. It's something like, I think it's like soul manifesting. I think it is what the actual term means. Wow.
So breathwork is a soul manifesting journey, you know, because you're looking at yourself through a different lens and everything like that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's kind of like an annoying limbo at the moment, because you know the trials that they're doing in America and now in Australia as well with psilocybin and MDMA are so exciting. Mm-hmm. Still not officially legal yet, so you still have to kind of put that premise in the beginning of some content, you know, just to say, oh, it's just a personal experience. But yeah,
it's so true. Yeah, and you've obviously done them before as well. Have you talked about that in your podcast too?
Yeah. And it's in my first book and everything as well.
Okay, perfect. Maybe we can put that in the show notes for people to refer to as well. But you were actually, so, you know, with anything, I think the same as breathwork and the same as cacao, I'm all about, if you've been to my events or my classes, I'm all about setting, and setting is something that's extremely important when you're going inwards. So whether you're setting up a meditation practice, a breathwork practice, a mini cacao ceremony each day. And obviously for me as a facilitator, it's something that's really important to me because I want my humans to feel really safe in that environment. And that was something that you experienced completely different to what I did.
I know. Yeah. Well, it wasn't my first experience, but when I was about 18, I had a lot of mushrooms in an unfamiliar setting without an intention at an age when obviously, you know, I didn't know myself anywhere near as well as I do now, that crisis of identity that we all go through as adolescents, you know, so to ingest something that's, you know, potentially destabilizing to someone who is already unstable in an unfamiliar setting after a week of drinking was pretty dumb. But I learned a lot from it, you know, to take like a positive attitude. But it was just too much, wrong time in my life. And, you know, it took me quite a while to pick up the pieces. But the way you did it was amazing. You know, you were so meticulous about the environment.
Everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was extremely anal about everything I was doing. So I think like from your experience being really different and you not having the best experience, and then which was good from my point of view when I went to do it, because you agreed to be like a spotter, so you weren't really taking anything. You also agreed to look after our 3 dogs, so thank you. While myself and my friend, actually we were in this room that I'm recording the podcast in. This is the room that I do my breath work in, my meditation. It's where I feel really safe going inwards. And In front of me is also a beautiful view of like trees and hills, and obviously you can see the moving clouds. So setting up my space was extremely important. And the way that we also did it was we made it into a tea. So obviously as I make my cacao, as you know as well, it's like a real ritual. So as we were making it, we were really present with making the tea, what we added to it, how it was sitting, where it was. And then we both set a really firm intention. And I did it like I was going to drink my cacao, like I whispered it into the cup. I sat with it, I was holding it, I was feeling into the cup. And then obviously drinking it in this space. We had I set out candles and incense. We had the John Hopkins playlist playing. So he created that was that for trials he created that for or something?
Well, I don't know. John Hopkins, as far as I understand, is a university named after a man named John Hopkins.
Yeah. So they set the playlist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I think it was for psilocybin therapy specifically.
Yeah. Yeah, so we played that playlist, which honestly is not a playlist I would ever listen to or ever pick. But in the journey, it was the most perfect playlist ever. I couldn't have picked a better playlist myself. But when you listen to it, you're like, what the hell? I was anyway. I mean, I'm not into that type of music. So yeah, obviously having our music, I had so many blankets. I had pillows. And just the room was really cozy, and we had like essential oils. And prior to, I actually have my cacao. And when you have cacao before any plant medicine or breath work, as most of the listeners will know, it enhances the journey. So I had that before as well. So the whole setting and setup took like an hour, probably longer, before we even like sat with the mushroom, with the tea, basically.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what you need to do. And I think even just your attitude can change. Like if you think about something like fear, where, you know, if you're really afraid of spiders and you're walking along a path and you see a spider and, you know, you cower because it's so terrifying and you run away, obviously that's very frightening. As opposed to your attitude, if you knew the spider was there, you knew you had to overcome the fear, despite the fear, you walk through it anyway. Just your intention and understanding of a journey like that, because of your background with breath work and cacao and meditation as well. You know, you had that ability, which I didn't at the time, only being 18. But you had the ability to recognize that the journey and the plant medicine was happening for you. So no matter how intense, overwhelming or frightening the experience would be, you were able to rest calmly in the awareness that it was going to be beneficial for you. And I think that probably, you know, had some effect of how positive it was.
Yeah, definitely. And I went into it I'm in a really good space in my life. So I went into it being like, this feels like a really good time to do it, you know? And also in that part where we're kind of like in between like moving house, and then we're, you know, in terms of like going back to events, and like my business is slightly changing as well. So all like, it was kind of like at that part where, well, I am changing, going into change, but I feel really good about it. So it would just be interesting to see what comes through for me, or how it works with me, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, sitting down with the tea with my friend who she's done it quite a few times before, and she had a different strain, would you say, of mushroom?
Yeah, I think so. She just had a different experience.
She just had something different to me, but we still both obviously had mushroom tea. And yeah, we both sat and drank it in the room, and we were just chatting after we set our intention. And you know, I was kind of asking her, because I was probably quite nervous at that time, being like, okay, what do I look out for? What to expect? How do I know if I'm feeling it? Probably just like you guys are thinking when you're in a breathwork session, being like, okay, what now? What's next? What do I expect? And as we were talking through it, I think it was only maybe like 10, 15 minutes after we'd drunk the full cup of tea. And then I was just like sitting and just, you know, just kind of being really open to I want to call it medicine, like the medicine doing its work. And after 15 minutes, my friend said to me, she's like, oh my God, have you closed your eyes yet? And I was like, no. And I closed my eyes. So this will be really, like people that are listening that come to all my classes will really resonate with what I'm about to say. So I get really jealous when people share at the end of a class saying, I saw this color and this color, and, you know, I saw this. And I'm not very visual when it comes to breath work. I get a lot of feelings and realizations and knowings. And one of my intentions for the experience was I just would love to see color, because I know it's a really common experience in psychedelic experiences. And you see those beautiful art pieces of people seeing the colors. Like, what's that guy you follow? Do you know the name of the top?
Yeah, Alex Gray, Grayson, Gray, like that. But he's like a psychedelic painter. And he does the kaleidoscopes, the refractory visuals, and yeah.
It's beautiful, beautiful stuff. And I'm like, how is that possible? So yeah, after 15 minutes, I closed my eyes. But as I closed my eyes, the eyelids closed over in a bright, piercing red color, like the color of an apple, like a red, beautiful, fresh apple. And I just started crying. I was sobbing that I could see color. Like, it was the most beautiful thing. And I think even if just that happened, just me closing my eyes, I would have been happy. I'm like, I would have been happy with that experience, because I've just never, you know, being able to see that. And then immediately as I closed my eyes, I got this overwhelming of feeling like, okay, now it's time to lie down. And that's when I lay down, and the experience just really kicked off for me. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it's so good. It's so good that you had that, you know, and then I remember us discussing, you know, how differently your senses kind of combine, you know, when you look at the brain, people on psychedelics with that thing called synesthesia, when you can, you know, see the sound of music, you know, or you can hear color. You know, it doesn't make any sense when you're sober, obviously, but it makes total sense when you're on them. And yeah, you've wanted that for so long, you know, which is
so long.
Yeah.
Like I go into a breathwork session being like, every time thinking, maybe this is the day. And when I hear my like clients who see color, I'm like, oh, I would love that. And I love that they saw it, because it must be so beautiful. So for the people that come to my classes, I saw it. It happened. And it was the first thing. And because it was a really strong intention of mine. And then, yeah, as I lay down, that's when it was a fucking light show, like just mind-blowing stuff. And what was really cool about it, I thought, for me, is I could close my eyes and I could talk to my friend at the same time, and the light show was still going on. So I could tell her what I was experiencing and seeing. And it was nice to have her with me, so I could be like, hey, is this normal? Like, is this what I'm seeing? And she was like so happy for me. But the lights would go, there was no start or no end from like the side vision. Like they would kind of go in a diagonal way, like they're coming through your vision, like through your body. Like there was no start, no end, so many different colors. And it was just beautiful. And at one stage at the start, I feel like for me, it was having a real play, like it was playing with all the colors, like kind of showing me like, this is what's possible, if anything. And it did that for a good while. And the way my experience worked is, so who was it, Eric Godsey, that said, well, you can say what he said about how it kind of works with you.
Yeah. I just remember him saying that it, you know, psychedelics have a way of dancing with your own psyche, you know, which is like, there's a subjective component to it as well. So most people will have an experience that is, you know, there are objective things that occur. Like a lot of people report seeing colors or, you know, moving through specific past experiences that were challenging or traumatic experiences, or, you know, having breakthroughs, especially with things like DMT and ayahuasca and stuff like that. But the subjectivity of it, which I think is what he was referring to, was that in each of those specific experiences, there's something that's very personal that arises from it. So, you know, you might have a memory come through, you know, and or just the whole experience itself felt like it was very much tailored to your personality, you know, which is what it was for you.
Yeah, massively. And that's what I was going to go on to say. So like breathwork, breathwork's there to nourish you and it's very unique to you. And I definitely felt that during this experience. But if I didn't have you telling me that, I probably would have been like, oh, is this right? Like I would have really questioned it. But because I knew it was there to serve me, I was like going with it. So I've got my journal here because I just don't want to forget anything. And obviously it was only 2 days ago, but I really want to do this podcast to keep it like fresh in my head and just for something for me to listen to go back and be like, oh, that was my experience. But yeah, I've got about the light show. And then I started seeing, so that was like the first section. And for me, what it did was it broke the experience up into sections. So as I was journaling, it was a really just a flowy journal at the very end of the experience, which when I was journaling, I didn't feel like my arm was my arm. Like it was very strange. People that have done psychedelics before will get it. But it was a very strange thing. So as I was looking back and reading over my journal, I'm like, why did I write it this way? But it makes sense to me now that the journey was broken up into sections. So like I've got first, second, third in my journal until the end. And it says the first section was like a light show. And it was like really showing me the lights and like a dance. And it was kind of like in and out, like it was just dancing in and out. And I always feel like I want to like move in and out as I'm talking about it, because that's the way it moved through like my face, my body. And then it would tell me to have a break. Like it was really beautiful. Then I'd be like, okay, time for a break. And it was more like just a feeling came through me. So I'd have a break, I'd open my eyes. And my left hand I used as my safe space. So every time I could look at my hand, it didn't move. There was no change. There was no color change. So I just looked at it to like kind of pull myself and ground myself a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I knew when I was ready to go back into the experience and then, close my eyes. And then the second part of the experience was when I started to see like these kind of shaman-y wizards to the right side leaning over my body, like praying over my womb, which is, I get a lot of period pains on like the left side of my body, which I'm obviously on a journey with trying to clear, but I could see them praying over it and trying to like pull it in and out. Like it was dancing with it. Like it was really, it was just beautiful, but it just like looking at them, it was just like, I keep thinking of that guy. I don't watch Harry Potter, but who's like that wizard guy?
Which one? Who's that wizard guy from Harry Potter?
Yeah.
They're all wizards.
Well, there's one like one guy I'm thinking of in my head, but I just don't know. Maybe I'm going to have to find
out. And he
out.
dances?
No, it's just like his face. That's what I saw. Like it was just that kind of outline, if you like.
Is he like like an old man?
Yeah.
Dumbledore?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
that sort of, is he a wizard?
Siobhan is the only person in the world that hasn't seen Harry Potter.
No, I think I have, but I'm not into it.
Yep.
Anyway, that was like the second section of it. And I don't think you had come in the room yet, had you?
I don't think so. No,
I think it was after this next bit, because then I've got,
childhood stuff.
Yeah, so the next part, guys, which is so weird, because I'm a fucking breathwork facilitator of all things. The third stage was showing me how I couldn't breathe. So the whole of my left side of the body, it was showing me where I was really tight in my body and I couldn't breathe. And I was actually gasping for air. I was like I kept wanting to like take these really deep breaths during it. And then it was showing me there was a blockage in the left side, but it was going to help remove the left side. And this is where I was like, a little bit being like, okay, what's going on? If you get like the crampy hands and breath work and you're a bit like, fuck, is this going to stay here forever? What's happening with this? And with the breathing, I'm like, oh, like I know I could breathe, but it was a real struggle. And then my legs started shaking uncontrollably. Uncontrollably. And then I think that's when you came in the room the first time and they were just like, and then I asked you, I'm like, are they shaking or am I just seeing it?
They were definitely shaking, but I don't think there's anything like it's so hard to say, like what is and I'm not experienced at all. I just obviously love reading about them.
Guys, none of us are experienced.
No, but it's so hard to say, you know, if like, oh, is this meant to be happening, or is, you know, it's almost like it's the wrong question.
Yeah.
Because it's an experience. So anything can happen in an experience.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And
but I think it's safety that you want when people ask those things. It's like, oh, is this normal? Which is basically just another way of saying, am I safe?
Yeah. And I feel like whatever was happening was normal. I mean, we kind of came to the conclusion it was might have been shifting the nervous energy. It could have been help shifting the blockage in my body, you know. But as soon as it showed me that, for the rest of the session, I was finding it really hard to breathe through my left side. Yeah. And it was like I could see in my body where I couldn't breathe. You know, it was like... and it was funny because I felt like I was taking these huge breaths, and then my friend was like, you were silent the whole time. Yeah. Like she couldn't hear me, but for me, I was like gasping, but I felt okay taking the deep breaths, but it was very strange considering my job is breath work, but I was like, just couldn't breathe during it. And then that's when you went out of the room, and it went into, this is where for me it really peaked. If there's a peak in it, there is a peak in breathwork, I guess. And this was the peak for me. And I keep referring it to breathwork because I feel like people can relate to the breathwork journey and experience. So this is why I keep saying this. And this is where it got really interesting, and it started going into like telling me it was going to start showing me some trauma, and it actually called it trauma, and it was going into my childhood. And it said to me, your trauma's like a pretzel. Yeah.
So what does that mean to you now? Like it's complicated? There are many different twists and turns?
Yeah, I think it's just, no, because if I think of a pretzel, I think it's just very beautiful turns and curves. Like there's no sharp edges. People love pretzels. They're like, I don't know, they're nice to me. And it's not like they're really tight circles. They're just very flowy circles. But it showed me a pretzel and the color. And then it showed me like centipedes. I think it was centipedes like crawling through them, and they were just rushing through the pretzel. And then, it was just showing me different things of like my childhood. So going through memories, which I've asked my mum about and she can't really remember, but me getting like my arm stuck in a letterbox, my dad, like my dad teaching me how to ride a bike, building a snowman. And it was just all, just really deep connection to my inner child. Actually, that's what I would probably call it. And I just remember my head was facing to the left on the pillow, and I was just sobbing. But then again, my friend couldn't hear me. She's like, no, you were silent. But I was really sobbing.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely crying. I remember that part for sure.
Yeah. So I think that's, I think that's when you came in, isn't it? Because I was like, oh no, you'll find this really interesting. Because obviously you're studying to be a psychologist, and I just thought you'd find like the childhood stuff interesting. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, just it's amazing how we remember those, you know, whether they're memories or, you know, because a memory isn't, you know, this is what happened moment after moment. It's a whole bunch of associations. You know, it's maybe some of the memory is episodic, so moment by moment. You know, I was here, then I got my arm caught in the letterbox. But maybe some of what you saw is encased in the overarching emotion of the time, with someone else's perspective that you took on from the time, you know, and it makes this whole big jumble of things that we call like a past experience. But that doesn't mean that it's not true, because all of that together is what makes an experience.
Yeah.
And if that has come through in a plant medicine session or in EMDR, or when you're speaking to a therapist or something, it's subjectively real, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's like, how do we interpret it and see it as a vessel for growth? How do we understand it? You know, and so you took away from it that, what did you take away from it again?
From the inner child sort of thing. Just that there's still, you know, there's always not work, but there's always things to look at, and it's just the way that why I'm shaped the way I am today, you know. And another thing that came through for me was when I was younger, I drew all over my bedroom wall one day, and my dad came home and he was really cross and really upset, as you would be as a parent. But for me, in a way, he kind of really, you know, from a child's point of view, or from an inner child's point of view, he really got cross at my creativity. Do you know what I mean? Because he's like stopping me from showing my art on my bedroom walls.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So creatively, he kind of like, you know, obviously went crazy at me because I was just writing all over the walls.
And how old were you, Ronnie?
Yeah, I kept saying I was 5. So I'd be interested to ask my mum to see if I was, but it was like a firm 5.
Because I think at that age we can understand, you know, if we get in trouble, we see the punishment as being fundamental, you know, but we're not able to like step back and rationalize or interpret why. So at that age, you know, you would see that as I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
Whether it's as an adult, we'd say you're not a bad person, but you obviously can't write on the walls.
Yeah.
So even if you said, look, you know, sit there, you know, I love these drawings of babies and prams, but you've got to do it on this piece of paper here. You can't do it up on the walls.
It's true.
At that age, it's just like, oh, what I'm doing is bad because I'm a bad person. It's all internalized. You know, our ability to understand different perspectives is like not there at all.
Yeah.
You know? But you are a very creative person. You should be more creative.
Well,
you should dance more, Von.
Maybe I should. Well, my whole experience, I felt like I was dancing. It was just, incredible.
Yeah.
And then obviously it went through a lot of that. And then it kind of went through a section of when I lived with my grandma. And if you guys have listened to my other episodes, you know how close I was to her. And it just showed me how like we're similar traits that we both have, which was really lovely. And that was kind of like the next phase of my life. And then it was like, okay, that's enough. And then it told me the ceremony was like coming to an end. It was like, okay, and then we're going to be like finishing up. And this is when, you know, the colors started to fade a little bit. And the end of it kind of ended with that quote of which I put on my Instagram. It's like, you are the captain of your ship. And I was like, wow. Just crazy. Crazy. But I think the one thing though is like the music was like, it felt like it was blasting around the whole room in a really, really lovely way. And just how it was like dancing, the colors were dancing. I felt like I was dancing. And I felt really safe. Like I felt safe. Obviously when I was at the peak of it, I was a little bit scared, and like obviously the breathing, my legs shaking was not ideal. But in breath work, I mean, I've experienced most of that before. Not that I couldn't breathe because I'm doing breath work, but that was really interesting. And like having you there, who's experienced it before and who was grounded, you know, you were there, and then having a friend doing it with you was just I like to stay grounded.
Yes.
It was just a really perfect experience.
Yeah. So did you, because I remember when you came back from New Mexico, there were lots of people there that done ayahuasca that were saying that breathwork was more intense than ayahuasca was. Like what were the differences and similarities between breathwork and mushrooms?
Really that they're like on your side. That's what I felt personally. Like it's there to help you, to serve you. It puts you through the emotional, the physical. It takes you on a journey inwards. And I would say that's it's the same in that way if you treat them the same that way. You know, you can go into breath work being like no intention or just like whatever. And just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do it and see what happens. Whereas if you treat it like, I want to go on an inward journey today, I feel like that intention will really help, you know, your energy and help the breath or the plant medicine. And I also took, which I forgot to say, I had my cacao before. Yeah. And as I was doing it, because cacao, they class as like a mother plant medicine, like, you know, mama cacao is kind of what we call it. I felt really held and supported, and I just knew that was the cacao plant holding me and supporting me. Like I felt very hugged like just held in my space. And I knew there was that. And I also knew what the mushroom was doing as well. And I also forgot to say, because you took the dogs out to the dog park for a while. And as I started to go into it, I was like, okay, I'm not going to be able to surrender until I know Tom's home and the dogs are home. And when they're home, I can surrender. So I was like I was 50-50. I was like half in, half out. And I just kept being like, are they home yet? Are they going to come home? Are they going to come home? And then in my head or in my body, I could feel the car driving home and pulling into the driveway. And as I was pulling into the driveway, I shit you not, the garage went up in real life. And they came home. Like I literally saw them coming home in my head. That was one crazy thing. And the next thing was, it was a beautiful sunny day. And I said to my friend, can you hear rain? And she's like, it's definitely not raining. I'm like, no, I can definitely hear rain. It's raining. 5 minutes later, we looked at the window and it's raining on the window. The exact sound I heard 10 minutes before the rain came. And those two things just blew my mind. I'm like, how? You know,
it's so crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for me, you were mentioning, we were talking about intention before, and one of the biggest takeaways that I have taken away from not so much any personal experience, but just with the reading, is that just how important setting an intention is for everything in life, for absolutely everything, which then I see as having a plan. If you don't have a plan, you don't know where you're going. How can you? You're just open to all of the, experience of the world coming at you at any one time without going, okay, I'm doing this now and then I'm going to do that later, or I'm doing this now and then I'm going to do this later. It's obviously when you're in that kind of vulnerable state, that mental state, having intention is going to move you through a purpose. There's a purpose why I'm taking these mushrooms, because, I want to find out about my childhood, let's just say. So therefore, irrespective of how intense or overwhelming or scary this gets, I'll have a ship to sail through the torrential water, or I'll have a rope tied to a tree so that I can be out in the scary river, despite what gets thrown at me or despite what's coming down the stream. And I see that in life in general, when I'm speaking to clients, my own personal experience, if you don't have a plan, it's just, life is just going to be so overwhelming all the time. But if you have that purpose, that reason why, that intention, however you want to say it, it gives you some way to just focus a little bit and narrow yourself so that it's just, life is just so overwhelming all the time. Because how else could you move through an experience like that? You're talking about colors and, foretelling the future, like all these things are so crazy, but if you've gone into it going, I feel safe, I feel held, I want to know more about myself.
Yeah.
Everything that happens, no matter how intense, can be placed in this basket of, oh, I didn't know that about myself. And you're ultimately going to be able to get through it.
Yeah, it's true. And I actually had like a couple of wee intentions, I guess you could call it, because I really wanted to see colors, because it's something I've just don't experience in breathwork. And I really wanted it to take me on a beautiful journey, like however it wanted to take me on a beautiful journey. And it blew my mind. Like it was just something more than what obviously I didn't have an expectation, but it was something more than that I would have I don't know. I just couldn't have asked for anything better, really. Like it really was life-changing, just knowing what you can see and like being able to open my eyes and see like every little particle of energy in the room and on my body. And, when you walked in, I could feel your energy. And the one thing, like at one point the dogs came into the room and I'm like, get them out. It was the only thing I couldn't handle changing. I didn't want to see them in a different color, a different light, nothing. I just needed them to like move out of the room. It was my one thing. I was like, nah, I need them to just be them.
So Aldous Huxley is my favorite writer of all time, and he wrote Doors of Perception, which is about his experience taking mescaline. And what he kind of thought, and maybe you'll see if you can resonate with this, Bonnie, is that in everyday life we don't see reality because we just don't have the brain capacity to take in all of that stimulation simultaneously. So right now I see a computer and I'm talking to you, but I'm basically just focusing on you. And then more specifically, I've seen you wear that top 4. I've seen your hair like that. I've seen you put earphones in. So all of that is totally irrelevant and unconscious to me now. I'm not taking it all in because I'm just talking to you about, your experience. But at this time, if I step back, I can see letters on a keyboard. There's a second keyboard down here. There's a phone there, a book there. Even the little indents in the wall of the white paint. There's infinite amount of little bumps there. And then outside there are all these different colors and shades on the wall. There's so much stimulus that I could take in, but it's all rendered irrelevant because my task right now is that I'm talking to you, and my task is sufficient so that all of that stimulus doesn't overwhelm me. But Aldous Huxley was talking about how psychedelics, there's a reducing valve. So there's and he called it the big mind. So psychedelics open you up to the big mind, and the big mind is able to take in all of that stimulus so that you see all the little particles, you see the beautiful stitching on jeans, you see all the stuff that you wouldn't normally see because it's all just unconscious to you. And he says that, we have a little mind right now because that's all we can do as humans. But the reducing valve, it's like the valve is opened up massively, turning the cold tap on until there's no blockage anymore, and all of that stimulus comes in, and all of a sudden you see things that were always there but you never saw. It's such a cool idea.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And, some people, because I did a lot of research on this before I did it, watched a lot of YouTube videos. I read a lot about it, and some people say to maybe go outside. Some people say to, there's lots of different ways you can do this. But for me, I was like a dead weight. I was so heavy on the floor. There's no way I could have moved. I couldn't. And then at one point I said, can you get me some toast? Oh, I had toast and butter. What the taste? I have never tasted anything like it. My taste buds were just so enhanced. Oh, it was so
And you love toast and butter as it is.
I do. It's my favorite thing. But having that with that experience. And that was another funny thing, speaking of predicting future stuff. So I never, ever leave any part of toast on my plate in my life, ever. Anyway, I left half a slice of toast and butter on the plate and went back into, I think, my 5th section of the experience. No, my 7th, because it ended on the 8th or 9th. And it said to me, okay, we're finishing now, or we're coming to an end, so I want you to eat the rest of your toast. And I remember going, I don't have any toast left. Eat the rest of your toast, journal. It gave me my captain quote, and we're gonna finish. And the colors just started going till it was when you close your eyes and it's black. And I opened my eyes, I'm like, well, there's my toast, there's my journal. And then I ate my toast and I started journaling. It literally was okay, you're done now. It told me. And then I told my friend, I was like, oh, I think I'm done. She's like, what do you mean? How do you know you're done? I was like, it told me I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, because it was working with me, because that's how I work.
That's how you are.
This is the start. This is the sections. Have a break. Section break.
You do that with everything. It's so annoying watching a movie with you.
Yes.
It's just 20 minutes. All right, break time. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
I was just getting into it.
It's true. It's the way I do my whole day.
Yeah.
And I love it. It works for me.
Works for you.
The experience was the same. At the start it was very dancey and fun, and it was a light room and a disco. And at one point there was an orchestra playing out of my chest. I was like, wow, this is cool, And then it started getting into the nitty gritty things as all the lights were moving. And then I was like, okay, have a break, go back in. And then at the end, it was like, okay, we're coming to an end. Eat your toast, journal. Here's your quote to finish. And then basically it was like, that's enough for today.
Yeah.
So it kind of went into like different periods of my life, like the very start. And I feel like if I did it again, it would literally, because the way I work, pick up where it left off.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Just like put that chapter mark, that bookmark in the book. And yeah. Well, that's it, isn't it? That's who you are as a person. You're very systematic, very direct with how you live your life. And, I'm the complete opposite. I go into all the little things and, so it definitely works. As you said, it works for you.
Yeah, I agree. And then as soon as it basically was like, you're done. And as soon as I finished journaling, which it said was the last thing I would do, my legs stopped shaking. I could breathe and the colors went away. Like that's how like start and finishy it was. So altogether it was what? 3 to 4 hours, would you say?
Yeah, I think about 4 hours.
Which a normal is like what, 4 to 8 or something, 6 to 8?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know.
Is there a normal? Whatever. Yeah. Anyway, that was my personal experience. It started very quickly, 10 minutes after the tea, I'd say. Finished quite sharp. And then afterwards, I just really want to lie and like let myself integrate the experience. And I think we lay in this room for a couple of hours, wasn't it?
Yeah. Just hanging out. Then we got Indian food. That's the important part.
Yeah, Tom's like, and then we got food.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and then we sat and watched Netflix.
And you didn't have crazy dreams that night or anything?
No, not really. I mean, I did. I've been having like very vivid dreams, but I wouldn't say they were like crazy. No, I can't really remember it, but I passed out.
Yeah.
I was so exhausted from it, but in a nice way. Like, I guess, when you do breath work and it was a really intense experience or it was showing you a bit more than normal. Sometimes it can make you, people report they have the best night's sleep after breath work. So I guess it was like that. I just slept so deeply and so well. And I was meant to go to the gym at like 5:45 in the morning. I'm like, I think I'll just pass on that one.
Yeah.
I'll see like the treadmill moving.
I know, it'd still be trippy.
Like,
all right, Siobhan, here we go. What's the point? We're all one.
Yeah. But I didn't get that feeling. It wasn't so much about that though. No,
that kind of deep spiritual breakthrough or anything like that.
No, but I said this to you today. What I did see was I get a bit, saving my breath work. I'm like, okay, I'm ready for like some darkness. I'm ready for some deep shit. I'm ready for, some of my shit to come up. And when I was saying that, or when I was like asking, or I was open to that, I guess I could say I was open to that coming through. It showed me like the light and the dark, as I just imagine they're like two squiggly lines like put together, and they were kind of just like dancing in and out, like the dark and the light were dancing together. And I was like, yay! Well, let's dance, and that is basically what it was saying. But I was like, is there anything like, I guess my intention wasn't that, but when I was in, I'm like, oh, let's just try. Let's see if I can go a bit deeper, as always.
But you can't have something that's bad. Like, it doesn't really make any, there are bad things and good things, but if the intention is to go in and understand more about yourself, are there really any bad parts? It's like they're just parts.
Exactly.
There might be uncomfortable parts or sad times, but the key is to remove that shame. Shame is, this is a bad part about me. Well, no one has bad parts about them.
No, it's true.
However you want to call them.
Well, that's what it was showing me. Like, everything is just a dance. Like, it's just back and forth, in and out, all directions, but it moves together. Like, it was just so beautiful.
And the whole thing about we're all one. To me, that's very practical because, you said, you were seeing the particles in the air and all that kind of stuff. And
from that point, it made like, I really did see that,
If we're all made of particles, then we're all, we're all one in that way. It's all particles.
Yeah.
Particles and subatomic particles and things. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's one of those. One thing I find really interesting is that all the great spiritual gurus, well, not all of them, but a lot of them, especially from the 60s, began their spiritual teachings after psychedelic experiences, but then rarely, if at all, continued to use psychedelics. You know, they found that it opened them up to a different way of seeing the world, and then they began to study different religions, more Eastern traditions, and then meditation seemed to be their vessel to continuing their work. You know, so I think psychedelics are they're ways to tap into different perspectives. Yeah. And even just that understanding is enough, I think, to, you know, back into a therapeutic setting. If you can grasp the idea that there are different perspectives and you can really internalize that, that can be enough for growth. Yeah. Because if someone comes to you and says, oh, I'm dealing with, you know, a lot of childhood trauma, you know, a lot of shame, if you can step back and go, there's another way of looking at that. You know, maybe I'm not a bad person. Maybe that person had a bad day. You know, if there are different perspectives, any one that's not the one that you've currently held that's bogging you down is going to be a different way to help you look at yourself in a more positive light. And I think that's really important as adults, well, as everyone, but for a fully developed brain to be able to go, oh, yeah, that's how my anxiety would see that, or that's how my shame would see that. But if I was really happy and satisfied, maybe I would see that as, well, I just made a mistake. Doesn't mean I'm a bad person, you know? Yeah,
definitely. It is just a different way. And I guess like how there's so many different healing tools available, you know, like you find what works for you, you find how you feel, what you feel really safe with, what environment you're in to do a certain healing modality, you know? Yeah. And if you want to hit that space every day, there's always meditation and breath work. Always, you know, you're available to get to that space.
It's like your intention behind it, isn't it? Always. Yeah. You know, it's, you know, people would say, what, if you're drinking beers as a way to grow, it's like, well, when I drink a beer, I you know, do a little gratitude thing before it. I pay particular attention to the froth on the top. You know, it's a great way for me to relax after the day. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's an interesting way.
That is a meditation, though. Literally, like having food, making a cup of tea, you can make it with so much awareness and presence that it's a meditation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
So you got to, I always say it, find what works for you. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. I'm trying to like scan through my journal, see if I missed anything cool. Because every time I get off, I'm like, I should have shared that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I feel like that was the majority of it. It was just, really cool. And then woke up the next day, still feeling quite tired, but I felt amazing. I had like such a clear head. Like I kept saying, I've got no thoughts. Impossible, but it felt like very, very clear, you know. And my friend had a completely different experience than me, and she messaged me the next day saying she had the best day ever. She was at work, she had a clear head, she felt blissful, joyful, full of gratitude. You know, she had a very different experience to me, very mellow, very loving, and she felt amazing. So I mean, the next day was just like, wow, I feel quite heavy, but I feel clear. Like I felt on point. Yes. I'm like, give me a task, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's that subjectivity, isn't it? Because you guys were both in the same setting, you know, but two different experiences.
Yeah. Cool. I feel like that is all I have to share. Back to the podcast with a bang.
I know. Yeah, you should keep these up, Von.
I know, I'm going to. I'm glad I had something to talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'll try and attach the playlist to the show notes. Maybe that guy's Instagram, because if you guys want to see like what I saw, I think that Instagram is a really good example. Was there anything else we said?
No, I'm very interested in the research that's coming out about it all. So
Go to Tom's Instagram page if you want the research, because I definitely won't be sharing that. I'm a doer. Tom's a researcher. That's why we work so well.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll test it.
Yeah, exactly.
Tom's like, I will find out every single thing about it for you.
Yeah. I know. It's just interesting hearing about different people's experiences, and we just know so little about it.
I know.
Our understanding of the brain is so limited. Our understanding of consciousness is even more limited. No one knows what the hell it is.
It's
and that's why
so
many people write.
Though.
I heard this really cool analogy on this podcast, and Neil deGrasse Tyson said, so you take something like gravity, right? Gravity is pretty conclusive. Everybody knows what gravity is. There are mathematical formulas for it. If you have something here and you drop it, it goes to the ground. And that's why no one writes books about it, because we understand it. But if you go to a philosophy or a spirituality section in a bookstore, every second book is about consciousness, because there were so many different theories about what it is, because we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
We have no idea. And I feel I'm interested in psychedelics because I think they are a different way of learning more about consciousness. So
yeah. I like it, Phil. Really
good.
Go to Tom for your research, people.
not me, but you can look it up if you just go Google Scholar. All the papers are there.
True. Well, if you guys have any questions about the experience, please feel free to ask. Again, I was just sharing my personal experience. Nothing else. But yeah, please reach out if you have questions. And hopefully these podcasts are back on a roll now. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Tom, and for having a conversation with me. I think it would be.
Thank you for having a conversation with my fiance.
I think it would have been weird inviting someone else on and being like, "Hey, so let's talk about psychedelics." I mean, you love the research, so you were definitely very fitting.
Yeah, well, it was fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and I will catch you on the next show. Bye-bye.